Now, the supply chain, I suppose, is one of the sort of least glamorous aspects of the publishing industry, but it is one of the most important. Do you think senior figures in the industry engage with it enough?
Yes and no. I've seen a trend probably in the last 2 years where the senior figures have engaged more in the supply chain, probably due to the economic climate and to actually look at reducing cost of sourcing books and getting them to market. However, I think there's still more that can be done in terms of actually analysing the supply chain, working with publishers to really review the complete end-to-end from production right the way through to put it in the consumer's hands. And that's really where virtualised logistics comes in, to actually sit and consult with the publisher, understand their business challenges, understand their strategy going forward, look at their sourcing programs, and look at really at the best way of actually getting their books from print to market.
Because through virtualised logistics, SBS Worldwide is able to examine the supply chain, as you say, from beginning to end, every link in the chain, and propose a tailor-made solution. How much on average can a publisher save if they really sort of take apart the chain and then put things together again?
Well, I think looking at our case studies and looking at the work that we've done with publishers, we can usually look at saving approximately 20%. And I think that's really where we aim. You know, we aim to actually sit down, as I say, we very much work closely consulting with the actual publishers and to look at their print buying patterns, to really look at their actual mode of transport in terms of getting the goods to market. And we also work very closely with the production directors, the financial directors, the shipping managers, everyone who's going to have some kind of input into the supply chain, understand what their challenges are, build it together, and then deliver a solution that can actually achieve those savings.
I mean, most of the stuff comes out of production, I guess, now, doesn't it?
Definitely. I mean, production are very much in charge, in essence, of not only sourcing and buying the print and managing the production. You tend to find that the actual shipping and the supply chain aspects of the business does land on their desk.
You've examined a lot of supply chain arrangements down the years, I'm sure.
Sure.
Can you mention a couple of crazy things that you've come across?
A real good example of craziness within the publisher supply chain, I guess, was many publishers were sourced from China. They will ship the books into a central warehouse in the USA or UK, for instance, and then from there they will ship the books on to Australia, other areas in Europe, down to Africa, India, wherever it may be. And for us, that's just a real crazy strategy, because not only does it take longer to get the books to market, it's also more expensive, it's not as green, and they're just not getting the return on investment and the cash flow that they should be from that sourcing program. So that's probably a little bit of a crazy one, really.
So they're saving money on the print, but maybe paying much more to actually get it in.
Yeah, exactly. Our whole aim when we're consulting with a publisher and looking at the way in which they are getting their books into the consumer's hands is to do it with as little handling processes as possible, and to make it as direct as possible, because speed to market really is what it's all about now.
I mean, I suppose most publishers regard the logistics side of the business rather than regard the rest of us think of banks. You think, oh, I need to change, but it's such a hassle.
Definitely, and I think for any organisation, change is always a challenge. And I think that was the real core reason for us creating virtualised logistics, because not only do we, as I say, understand the business challenges, look for efficiencies and cost savings and applying our technology and our systems to the supply chain, we're also there every step of the way in terms of implementation and the change process from their existing supplier to SBS.
I suppose publishers are very surprised often when you show them a computer model, I suppose, to you of how it will work.
Definitely. I mean, we have the tools to not only analyse the supply chain and what we would call a cost to serve model. So what we do is we say, okay, let's have a look at, say, your top 20 titles. Do you truly know how much it costs you to print that book, process it through the supply chain and put it in their customers' hands? And many times publishers don't. So we sit down, we analyse that cost, and we say, actually, this is how much it really does cost to get that book to market. Can we do it in a better way?
Now, last LBF, you unveiled slip sheets, in fact, which you estimate saves about 15% of cost and adds about 30% more capacity.
Yes.
What's the big idea for this year's London Book Fair?
I think we continue to push the slip sheet idea. I think it's still yet to be fully adopted into the publisher supply chain, and there is such significant savings to be made by actually shipping with that process. But I think the big news for us this year is virtualised logistics. It's us actually forming a dedicated consultancy team that are focused on literally as I say, understanding the publisher's challenges, their business strategy, their supply chain, and really delivering, world-class solutions in terms of efficiency, savings, and the best way for them to source their books and get them to market.
Tony Leach, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, chief executives are always complaining these days that they spend 95% of their time on an area of the business that generates less than 5% of income. Does that suggest that they're really too mired in sort of the here and now, not really engaging in all that blue sky thinking as to how the industry will look 3, 5, 10 years from now?
It may imply that. I think the point is that 95%, if it is indeed that, is being spent on an incredibly important part of their business. And the concern is that they're looking for immediate ROI. Investing that time in what is a relatively small proportion of their current income is important. I can recall the media industry saying exactly the same thing 12 years ago when digital income was about 0.5%. And they said it would never be much. And it's not so long ago that it reached parity with television, which nobody would have foreseen. And the problem is that nobody was really looking that far forward, and everybody was considering the very short term. And the danger is that the publishing industry does exactly the same thing.
But they are quite bogged down in the minutiae, aren't they, of sort of the day-to-day, and
Yes.
not the big picture.
You're right. Individuals do come from an industry that has been pretty staid, fairly predictable. Developments have been reasonably obvious. Technology hasn't made massive leaps and bounds in the previous decade. And all of a sudden, within a 12-month period, all hell's let loose. And everybody's trying to cope with it. But the farseers are incredibly important. And I've seen little evidence of the crystal ball gazing that is incredibly important to give the industry an indication as to what to look for and what is really, really important.
We may be in the last gasp of publishing as we know it, and it may look entirely different in 5 years.
It will look entirely different. There's no two ways about it. And the fact is that publishing will still exist, except I think the terminology will change. Publishing is something that we've stuck with for a very long time. The language is content. It doesn't matter whether it's on the screen, on your handheld, or in a book, it's content. And it's about content management. And it's bringing the experts to bear, particularly the editors, to make best value of that content and also to realise the commercial opportunity that comes with it. Now, at the end of the day, the job of a chief executive, come what may, is to run a company to sustainable profit. Whatever that individual has to work with, whether it be the team, the content, the product, the brand, the parameters are the same. The dynamics are much more considerable in this current climate for publishing, and there is cultural change as well. You can't suddenly staff up with hundreds of digital experts that weren't previously in the industry. They've got to come from outside. That inevitably will invoke cultural change and many others that CEOs and MDs and so on will have to deal with.
I mean, there have been some high-profile appointments from outside the trade, of course, but I suspect that more appointments to digital roles have come from within the trade, bright young things who are techie.
Yeah, there is an element of the comfort zone of converting people that you already know or are already familiar with.
Just having your team around you.
Yes, and evolving their roles. The problem is the pace of change. The publishing industry has got about 24 months from about a year ago to sort it out. And I just don't think it's possible or viable to convert people who historically have been publishing and not digital into something that is viable today. You have to import people from other industries. The media industry is one of the most obvious areas because it went through this revolution a decade ago. And so there are some very learned, very capable individuals who really do want to work in publishing because it is content management. The point you made about salary is absolutely right. Pound for pound, a digital person is going to cost you approximately 35% more than a traditional publishing person at almost any level up to, but not including the most senior executives. That is a significant burden for any company to bear, and they've got to work out whether they can afford it and what returns they're going to get and over what period.
Now, the climate generally is improving, we're told. How is recruitment? I mean, are you seeing an increased number of vacancies to fill?
Yeah, I mean, last year wasn't a great year for anybody, but certainly the last 2 or 3 quarters we've seen increases each time. We're currently up 18% on the previous quarter, and we're up 22-23% in the current quarter against the same quarter last year. It is still the case that the bulk of those positions are traditional, traditional publishing. About 40% of the new briefs coming in are digital.
Do you think we are enough bright people are coming into publishing? We're turning out dozens of people every year from publishing courses. What do you think about that?
That is it's a contentious issue, because historically I think we'd all like to think that individuals coming into publishing did it because it was a vocation. It's something that was just in them. It inspired them. It's what they'd always wanted to do. It was a conviction. I think we've got to be prepared for a generation of people coming into publishing that are content conscious. They want to get their opinions out, and they want to make money from it. They won't show the same degree of loyalty to the company brands that has, I think, historically been the case. I think there's going to be far higher turnover. Demand is definitely going to outstrip supply of the talented people over the next 2 to 3 years, which will push the prices up. But we've got to get away from this rather romantic view that all publishing is because people just are inspired to do it and love to do it. It's a business. It's there to make money, and it makes money by embracing talent, just like many other industries do. And if we're teaching people and advocating that they should come into the publishing industry, all training has got to be very contemporary. There's got to be a great deal more investment back into university courses to make individuals prepared for the industry that we're going to have, not the one that we used to have. And there is a lag there that hasn't been addressed.
And finally, what's the London Book Fair this year hold for you?
Well, it's going to improve our business. We've got a lot more people on the ground. We've been busy hiring people, and it gives us an opportunity to meet with plenty of our client contacts.
Steve Hyde, thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
Now, independent publishers, both trade and academic, have been quite quick to spot and grasp the opportunities of print on demand, but larger mainstream publishers, seems to me, haven't. Why have they been so slow, do you think?
I think there's a mixture of reasons. I think digital printing has only been really mature for the past 5 or 6 years, and every year you're finding the productivity and quality of digital printing is improving. And now we're finding the crossover points between digital and offset printing maybe as high as 5,000 copies for certain applications, which makes it very, very much a mainstream product. But in the past, of course, the run lengths that you could do cost effectively digitally have been much lower. And so now that paradigm has shifted to longer run lengths being within the remit of trade publishers, journals, colour book, educational, we're starting to find that publishers are now highly interested in mainstream publishers, highly interested in the technology because it reduces their inventory risk. The unit cost for per copy doesn't change according to how many you print. So instead of printing a run length of maybe 15,000 for a first edition, they can print 5,000, see how it goes, and then print another 5,000. Obviously, it's a chicken and the egg. You have the capability of the technology, and then, of course, you have to place the technology with print service providers to make it available for mainstream publishers. And I think only now is that circle being closed, so to speak.
What would be the upper end of a print run?
It does depend on a lot of things. In colour books, if it's a coffee table art book, the crossover point is much lower, because of the type of technology you're using, and the ink coverage on the page may be between 500 and 1,000 copies. If it is a trade publication or an educational publication, tend to be colour light, where inkjet technology is appropriate. It can be up to 5,000 copies, where the crossover between offset and digital. And of course it depends on the print service provider's technology that they're using themselves.
Large print publishing has always been difficult because it's expensive and so on. It seems to me that this sort of printing is ideally, we're now in an age of digital printing where you could do, you could do anything in large print, couldn't you?
That is indeed the case. I mean, if you imagine a digital press that is running, loading the files, you could even do the same edition with large print and the normal print size. There is no reason why you can't do it. And that's, I think, a fascinating point. That I think what we're seeing as people adopt the digital technology is it's perpetuating this paradigm shift. You're seeing that you're having more versioned copies of books. In education, you're seeing more teachers' version of books. You're seeing more mashed versions of books where university professors are specifying chapters from this and chapters of that. There are a lot of opportunities for publishers to maximize the opportunity through version print, through special editions, through personalized print, even through print editions for specific bookstores could be, or the same content repurposed for different demographics, different languages, of course. I mean, there are many, many opportunities using digital printing.
So a huge number of benefits. We haven't really scratched the surface yet, then, is it?
Do you know, we look at the total number of publishing pages, and this is, of course, our opportunity, and we estimate that maybe 2% of those pages in the publishing sector are produced digitally today. So we still have this territory of 98% of the market to go for. Now, do we realistically think that the technology is obviously going to evolve, and is going to evolve fast? Of course, still the vast majority of print in the foreseeable future will be done offset. But what we do see is that the value of digital pages tend to be higher both for the publisher and the printer. And we do see that a lot of the business model changes that we're seeing with ebook and the concerns that publishers have about the uptake of ebook on their traditional business model is also perpetuating the uptake of digital printing.
And of course the great plus is that you haven't got any returns, and of course you haven't got any pulping to do.
Indeed. Well, the environmental benefits are of course huge, because depending on whose statistics you read, but there are of trade publications, it can be up to 10 or 15% of books are pulped. Our aim being here is obviously to talk a little bit about digital printing and what we can do, but also to learn from publishers what they actually want in the market and what the challenges they face, so we can repurpose our products and develop products that fit the needs of the market going forward.
Robert Stabler, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.